and welcome back to the Wheel of Time reWOTch with me, James. And today we are going to be talking about episode 6, The Flame of Tar Valon. But before we get started, I do want to say I'm sorry I'm missing my deadline for this. A weird thing happened a week ago or so, and it's taken a while to go away, but one of my eyelids got bruised. Just the eyelid, not the eye, not around the eye, just the eyelid. That's it. It was just bruised and red and puffy and very sore and very tender and was not a comfortable time. So I am late. This is being recorded just a day or two before season 2 comes out. My original plan was to try and have all 8 episodes recapped before season 2 dropped, but that's not going to happen. But I am going to just do season 1, then I'll start doing stuff for season 2. So, with all of that stuff out of the way, let's continue on. Today we're going to do episode 6. This is called The Flame of Tar Valon, and this was also directed by Sally Richardson Whitfield, who I talked a lot about during episode 5. She's absolutely fantastic. That I just wanted to, I'm trying my best to shout out the directors on this, because with TV shows, I actually like the fact that there's a lot of different directors for a lot of different TV shows. And you never know where great talent's going to come from. So you had the Russo brothers started on Community. You had Brian Johnson, who people seem to like for some reason, started with Breaking Bad. So, there's always going to be talent coming from different places. With that stuff out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the episode. Like I said, this one's called The Flame of Tar Valon. And this opens up for the cold open. We're in a river valley, and we see a girl sleeping, and her dad approaches her. And he takes her out to go fishing. And while he's fishing, you see that he only has one arm or one hand. And he's trying to undo a knot on a net, and the little girl channels to undo the knot for him. This is something that the dad's aware of, but he's very scared about the community around them, and that somebody might see, somebody might know what she can do, and channeling is very frowned upon within this community. After they get done fishing and they return home, we find out that their house had been burned down, and on the remains of what's left of their door was a symbol drawn in red. And this looks like the symbol for the Aes Sedai, but it's drawn in red. And with them discovering this, he decides he's going to send her to Tar Valon so that she can be with other people that can channel. She won't have to worry about people coming to their home and burning it down, and she can learn to be Aes Sedai and control her powers and maybe do some good for the world. Hold on. Kitty. Yeah, I know. Not today, though, okay? And as they say their goodbyes, you find out that this is the little girl's name is Swan Sanche. She's going to be important later. So we move on from there and go to the credits. And then after the credits, we open up in the tower, and we see the tower is full of women. And we see Moiraine, Alana, and Leandrin standing before the Amerlin seat. What's going on here is the trial of Logain. So Logain is brought before the Amerlin, and she is trying to, I guess, have some sort of semblance of justice for what happened to him. But being that he is a man that can channel, he was going to be gentle anyways. This was just an opportunity for Logain to say his piece. Logain is pretty defiant and insulting during this exchange. The Amerlin knows what he's up to and says, listen, I know you're just trying to make us mad so that we'll kill you and end your life, but that's not the lot for you. We're going to keep you alive as long as we can. And then in chains, Logain, or not, I don't think he's in chains anymore, but he's hauled out from the room. And then the attention of the Amerlin focuses on the 3 women in front of her, and she begins admonishing them for what they did to Logain. When this happens, Leandrin stands up for herself, saying, "Mother, you weren't there. He killed Karene, and we did what we had to do." She was backed up by Alana and Moiraine in that situation. During this exchange, Leandrin starts bringing up other things, like the fact that Moiraine has been out of the tower for a long time. She shows back up with the most powerful woman who can channel that they've known about in their lifetimes, and starts asking what has Moraine been up to, and forces the Amerlin to ask Moraine as well. And Moraine simply tells her, I cannot answer. And the Amerlin says, will not or cannot. And she says, I cannot. The Amerlin does not like this because this is seen in public, this is seen as being extremely defiant to the Amerlin. So the Amerlin gives her a way out by telling her to supplicate herself in front of the Amerlin, and says, "On your knees." And of course, Moraine goes down, bows down, and it's the act of begging for mercy. As everything is done, they leave the tower, and Leandrine confronts her outside, saying, "What, did you expect me to stand up for you after you standing up for me? Like, you should know better. I'm a red." Moraine she plays power she plays power politics, but she honestly doesn't care about it too much. The next scene cuts to Moraine sitting outside in the city of Tar Valon, not in the tower. They're outside and drinking some tea, and we see Loyal and Nynaeve leave a room in the background. Lan shows up, and Moraine gets up, and they head to the room where she goes in and sees Mat laying on the bed. Rand is sitting there. There's a funny exchange where Rand gets up, and he's like, "Moraine, you're alive." And Lan is just like, "Yeah, it's nice to see you too, sheepherder." It was great. I loved it. But she takes a look at Mat and sees that something is wrong with Mat. When she approaches Mat, Mat attacks her the way that he did Nynaeve in the previous episode, but he tries to do it with the ruby-hilted dagger. She defends herself with the one power, using the one power to take the dagger out of Mat's hand and force Mat down. And she immediately knows that this came from Shadar Logoth, way back in episode 2. And she just looks at me and she's like, "Oh, you stupid boy." She proceeds to have Rand and Lan hold Mat down while she uses the one power to force out the evil of Shadar Logoth from Mat's body. She takes it onto herself and then puts it back in the dagger, and then drops the dagger. She kind of feels stunned a little bit. Lan covers up the dagger, and so she leaves the room like she needs some air. Rand goes out, and he thanks her for helping Mat. She tells Rand that Mat is stronger than he has any right to be. Rand is going to need to look after him in the future. Nynaeve walks in, and Moraine admonishes her. She's, "Listen, you're the wisdom of your village. You should act like you're a little wise a little bit. You made a huge mistake by not coming to me as soon as you knew something was wrong, and it was something that you couldn't cure." And Nynaeve is just standing there. The look on her face is just one of like disgust with herself. She's angry with herself for not doing that. And after that scene on the balcony, it switches to the next scene is in a bathhouse, and Moraine is sitting in the bath, and she is approached by a woman named Mygan. And Mygan is the leader of the Blue Ajah, and she starts talking to Moraine about what's going on in the tower, and starts asking Moraine about where she's been. And Moraine does a pretty good job of deflecting. But Mygan lets her know that she is aware of the things that Moraine has been up to, including the sinking of the ferry. She knows about the Trollocs being spotted in the west, humans filled the two rivers. And she talks about ships disappearing off the west coast. Mygan also tells Moraine that she's going to need to stay in the tower for a little bit because Mygan needs to leave, because she is actually going to be heading out west to learn more about the Trollocs appearing and about the ships disappearing off the west coast. After her bath, Moraine heads to see Perrin and Egwene. Perrin is asleep at this point. He's recovering from the wounds inflicted by Valda. As the scene picks up, you get the sense that Moraine has healed him a little bit, so he's going to be resting a little bit more. And she begins to talk to Egwene. Egwene mentions a little bit about the ordeal. Moraine thanks her for bringing the Aes Sedai rings back, and Egwene tells Moraine about Perrin's golden eyes. Moraine asks if anything weird happens, and she said, yeah, there was wolves all over the camp, but Perrin didn't seem to be bothered by it. In fact, he seemed sure that the wolves wouldn't hurt us at all. And Moraine immediately stops her and says, "Don't tell another soul about this. Don't tell anybody." And Egwene's kind of confused, but she's like, yeah, okay. And then Moraine takes her leave. And after her very busy, not-so-good day, Moraine is in her room and she is getting ready for bed for the night. You see her taking her hair down, removing earrings and stuff. And Lan comes into the room and says, "Hey, you masked your bond. We're in the tower. Things are a lot more dangerous here than we ever suspected that they would be. I can't protect you if I can't feel you. Why are you masking your bond?" Moraine doesn't really answer him, and he just kind of looks at her and says, "Hey, tell her I said hello," and just goes. He says, "I'll keep watch. You be back before dawn. You be back before dawn. All right." She goes over to the decoration that was on her wall that she opened up in the previous episode, and she goes and closes the door and steps back and uses the tower and opens up a doorway, a portal doorway. And she steps through the doorway. All of a sudden, we are in what looks to be like a fishing hut. Swan is sitting or laying on a bed. Yeah, and this is leading exactly where you think it's going to lead. In fact, there's a great callback to the scene in the tower where they have their first initial kiss, and then Swan steps back a second and says, "I really missed you," and stuff like that, and goes in and leans in to kiss again, and Moraine just stops her and says, "On your knees." And down she goes. It skips all of the fun bits, and we pick back up with them after they have exhausted themselves. And they start talking about all the stuff that's going on. And we find out that Swan knows everything that Moraine's been up to and everything that Moraine's been doing. She doesn't know specific details, but she's in on the whole thing. And they start discussing the prophecies of the dragon. Moraine mentions that, Swan mentions that she's been having dreams about the Eye of the World, and that she thinks that the Tarmangaiden is coming, the last battle is coming, and that they now more than ever, they need to be prepared and be on the same page. And with that, Moraine says, I don't know. I have 5 potential people, but I don't know which one of them it is. And Swan says, "Well, you're going to have to take them all to the Eye of the World to fight the Dark One." And Moraine says, "But that means that 4 of them are going to die ground between these forces, between what the dragon is going to have to do at the Eye of the World and the Dark One fighting back. The other 4 are going to die." Swan says, they don't know any of that. Swan says, it has to be done. This is all part of prophecy. And Moraine says, "Prophecy? What? Which prophecy? The prophecy's been translated a dozen different times, 100 different ways. Every area has a different version of the prophecy. Which one is true? Which one is the one that we're following?" She knows what has to be done, but that still doesn't mean that Moraine isn't worried about what she has to do, and that she's not afraid that she's doing the wrong thing. Or at least she's afraid that she might not be doing it in the right way. But as the discussion goes on, Moraine tells Swan that she will have to be exiled. So Swan's going to have to exile her from the tower. Swan asks why, and it says Maigan's ordered me to stay because she's going off. We pick up after that. The next morning, Lan and Moraine are making plans to leave, and they're walking around the tower, making their plans and whatever. And Leandrin shows up and interrupts Moraine, and she starts asking questions about Matt Cawthon and the boy to Moraine, that she knows what Moraine's been up to. Moraine's not having any of it and steps up to her and says, "I know about the man that you see. Shut your mouth and keep it quiet, or your sisters are going to find out about your man." What do you think your sisters are going to do? She turns around and she proceeds on to where she was going, which happens to be right outside on one of the White Tower balconies. She sees Loyal. She greets Loyal and talks to him for a little bit, and then asks Loyal for a favor. But we don't know what the favor is yet. After seeing Loyal, Moraine goes to the hall of the tower with Egwene. They're staring at the Amerlin seat. And Egwene asks a really good question. Doesn't it get confusing, calling the Amerlin seat both the actual chair and the person? Doesn't that get confusing? And Moraine says, you can ask her when you see her. But first, someone else wants to see you. And Nynaeve walks in, and we get a great reunion between Nynaeve and Egwene. And then they go see Swan in the Amerlin study. And we see Swan sitting down, and she greets them, says, "I'm the Amerlin seat, but right now you just call me Swan for today." She gives Nynaeve a compliment. She thanks Egwene for returning the rings of the Aes Sedai that Balda had taken. And after that, Nynaeve, being Nynaeve, looks at the Amerlin and says, "Now that you're done blowing smoke up our butt, what do you want?" the calm demeanor from that Swan had on comes off, and she gets very stern, and she says, "Listen, I know that you think it's unfair, the hand that you've been dealt in this world, but you know what? You don't have time to worry about that right now. The last battle is coming. Tarmangaiden is here, and what you want doesn't matter. Or some people are going to be called to greatness, and they're going to need to answer the call." And after that tense exchange, we find Moraine on the balcony of the White Tower looking out over the city of Tar Valon one last time. Lan asks her if she needs anything. She says, "No, you don't need to be there." Make sure that everybody else is where they're supposed to be. Moraine just continues to look out over Tar Valon. And then we go to the Hall of the Tower. But Moraine is in the Hall of the Tower, and the Amerlin comes in. We get a scene where she says, because Moraine is who Moraine is and what Moraine's done, and being so defiant, that she is going to be exiled as penance. And she says, in order to make sure this is binding in front of the Hall of the Tower, you're going to have to swear on the oath rod. And we see that there's this little rod that's brought out. Swan holds onto it, Moraine grabs onto it, they start using the power. And what this rod does is it makes whatever oath you swear on it, you're unable to break it. When Moraine told Egwene that she can't lie, it's because that's one of the oaths that they swear on this oath rod. As this exchange goes on with Moraine having to swear this oath, the words that she uses makes it sound they're much more meaningful than what everyone else in the room is hearing, because we know what the relationship is between these two women. And there's a lot of people, myself included, that see this scene as a sort of marriage between the two, especially when Moraine gets to the end, and instead of repeating the words that Swan says, she says that she will listen and obey until Swan calls her home. So she doesn't say the Amerlin, she doesn't say anybody else, she specifically says Swan. She walks out, and as she's walking out, all of the Aes Sedai are turning their backs on her, showing that she really is being exiled from the tower. But she takes it with dignity, she leaves, she has places to go and things to do. In which case, the next time we see her, she's in front of a waygate, waiting for everyone to show up, which they do. Loyal shows up with, I think, the girls, and Lan shows up with the boys, and they're in front of this. The waygate is a big stone structure. So they're standing in front of this whole thing, and Moraine tells them, okay, this is it. This is the ways, we're going through it. They ask what the ways are. Loyal explains it. I'll explain it in the next episode. For right now, it's just a faster way to get to where they need to go. So Nynaeve says that, we're not going to do this blindly. You're going to have to tell us what's going on. And Moraine says, we're going to the Eye of the World so that we can fight the Dark One. One of you is the Dragon Reborn, but I don't know which one it is. And we cannot know until the time comes. And at that point, she turns around, she channels and opens up the waygate, and everyone goes through, and they turn around, and Matt is still sitting outside as the waygate closes. And that's how episode 6 ends! All in all, this episode was fantastic for me. I absolutely loved this episode. When it first aired, I wasn't too thrilled with the Tar Valon story arc, but having gone through and rewatched all the episodes, I have a much better appreciation for it, and I think that there was a lot laid down in these episodes that will come to bear not only in future episodes, but in future seasons as well. And I hope that is the case, but we'll have to come back and revisit this in the future to see. In the meantime, leave a like and subscribe. If you enjoyed this, join me for episode 7 when I release it in a couple days, or when it shows up next in the playlist. And enjoy your day. All right. Because I am not doing good at this right now.